If you're applying for disability benefits or help people that are, the path to success has never been more complicated. Welcome to the Disability Expert Podcast, where we tackle the difficult issues and interview the country's top experts to help you better navigate the disability process. Winning a disability case is hard and keeps getting tougher every day. We can't promise you'll win your case by listening, but we sure think it's going to help.
This really isn't that complicated. I mean, you want to win your case, don't you? Well, then listen to what I say.
Hey, welcome to the Disability Expert Podcast. I'm Chad Brown. I'm your host. And once again, here we are with one of the nation's top disability expert attorneys, telling you all the things you need to know to hopefully win your case. Today with me is Hirak Pati. How are you doing, Hirak?
I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for coming on the show. Let me tell you a little bit about Hirak, why he's here, why he's an expert, and why I'm so excited to have him on the show today. He is a South Carolina, he wasn't born in South Carolina. He was born in England, raised almost his entire life in South Carolina. University of South Carolina, School of Law, Vanderbilt University undergrad, founded Pati Law in 2023. Before that, he spent 6-7 years working in a large Social Security disability practice in South Carolina, where that was the bulk of what he did. Well, I'm so excited to have Hirak on the show today, though, is because he has this really neat history where, starting at a pretty young age, he's spent a lot of time sort of fighting for people workers who were being underpaid, people who were sort of being oppressed by corporate structures. And, you know, in hindsight, if you look back, I think it really laid the foundation for him to be a really good advocate for disabled workers who are now fighting a different, much larger entity that's trying to not treat them fairly, the Social Security Administration, the U.S. government. So excited to have him on the show. Hirak, let's do this. So I want to talk a little bit about how you became an advocate, sort of your path into law, because I think that really helps people understand sort of your background, where you came from, why you're such a passionate advocate today, building one of the largest, soon to be probably one of the largest disability firms in South Carolina, and going to help a lot of people, have helped a lot of people. I think it's important, though, for people to really understand there are certain attributes that I see when I'm interviewing experts around the country that really sort of set them apart and distinguish them as people who become passionate advocates, not just attorneys who are handling a case. So that's where I want to go. But before we get there, let's go back a little bit. You've got a cool backstory. Tell us a little bit about your parents, how you ended up in the United States, sort of what your early childhood, college time was like. Just sort of walk us through that a little bit.
Okay. So my parents were originally born in India. We're from a little area called West Bengal. It's actually, so my name, Hirak, actually means diamond in Bengali. And so that's kind of like how I got my name. And so my dad, who's a physician, he moved to England in the 80s, and faced a lot of challenges and like trying to get a job there. One of the stories he tells that he came over there with $500. And so basically to survive, he was eating ice creams because that had the most calories and was the cheapest. So he was eating ice creams. And he's trying to pass his exam. Everybody says they fail on the first try. And of course he passes on the first try. And then my mom comes over, and I was born in 91. And about 2 years later, we moved to the United States. My dad got an opportunity in Columbia, South Carolina. He was doing some work with stem cell transplant, which at the time was really, really hot. And he ended up getting a job over by Richland Memorial Hospital in Columbia. So we spent a few years there. I spent a few years growing up there, but I spent most of my time growing up in Spartanburg. My dad got a position in 1998. So I spent a good bit of my childhood and, growing up living in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So that's kind of how I ended up here in our great state of South Carolina.
Yeah, that's cool. So parents, from India to England, you go from England, you're born there, you end up in South Carolina. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, you've been in South Carolina your whole life. Do you even have a memory? You probably don't have any memories of not living in South Carolina, do you?
No, I mean, and it surprised a lot of folks that I talk to because they look at me and they're like, you got to be from somewhere else. And I'm like, no, I just grew up here in South Carolina. I use all the expressions everybody else uses. I use y'all just like everybody else does. I spent so much time growing up in South Carolina, getting to know the great folks here. And, I have lived some other places, but everything's always taking me back to South Carolina. You can't beat this state. That's really how I feel.
Yeah. So you did leave a little bit when you left high school, though. So you go to Vanderbilt and go to Vanderbilt to undergrad. I've had much conversations with you. Super smart guy. Obviously, they don't let non-smart people into Vanderbilt typically out of high school. But when you got there, you have this cool story where you were working and then you end up becoming an advocate. Can you talk a little bit about that? I just think that says so much about sort of your background and how how you were really being prepared even then to be such a strong advocate for people who are disabled.
Yeah, so I applied for a position in Vanderbilt student dining. So basically, what we do is we are students, but we work with the folks that are like the dining workers and stuff. So what we do is, we might help them with like stocking the plates or serving food and things like that. They didn't necessarily let us cook the food, but we did pretty much everything else. So it was a big part of their workforce. So I worked there for about 2 years, got to know personally a lot of these folks that were working there. In fact, some of them are still friends with me on Facebook. Through talking with them, getting involved with them, I realized that the wages that they were getting paid was not commensurate with how much Vanderbilt actually like that the whole university has, because the university has lots and lots of money they're getting from us as well as other people, and yet they were still paying the dining workers such low wages. Interestingly enough, the dining workers actually had a union, but the union was fairly weak. They represented construction workers, so when it came to the dining workers, they kind of got the short end of the stick. So they were not getting paid even a living wage to live in Nashville, which has gotten even more expensive than since I left. But they weren't getting paid the wages that they were working so hard, and they weren't getting paid the wages they deserved. So I got involved in the campaign to help them get a living wage to be able to afford to live in the place they call home. And so I got involved with that campaign, and I also did some stuff that was like outside of that. I also worked on some campaigns around the issue of wage theft. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but wage theft is one of the biggest crimes in the United States. So companies steal billions of dollars from workers every year. It's probably more than even you think that, burglary and all these other crimes would be big, but wage theft is one of the biggest crimes out there. And basically what they do is they'll give undocumented workers, $3, $4, $5 an hour. They do it in cash envelopes, hoping that they're not going to notice and they're not going to do anything about it. So what Workers Dignity did was they would go to these businesses and they would picket them, and they would also organize workers around asking their bosses to get paid. And a lot of times after a few weeks, the business would say, well, you know what, we're really just tired of these really annoying students coming over here and making noise and stuff, especially when you're at a hotel, you're trying to sell the experience and you got noisy people outside just disrupting business and stuff. So after a few weeks, they would cave in and pay. And that often worked a lot better than, trying to sue them or, other methods that you'd think would work. So that would often work quite well, these businesses. So I got really familiar, with the fact that you could actually take action and it would actually have a benefit to people. So I just got a lot of, personally, I felt really good about what we were doing to help people, because even though I was a student, I just felt like those outside experiences were even more valuable to me than what I was learning in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, and I certainly a testament to your willingness to step into spaces where people are being mistreated or not being treated fairly, to be able to advocate for them, because very often, and we see this in the disability space all the time, for whatever reason, intelligence, education, background, fear, medical impairments, or whatever it is, a lot of times our clients really aren't in a position to truly be able to advocate for themselves. They don't have the knowledge, they don't have the background, and they find themselves up against this massive institution, in the Social Security Administration, very similar to, employees at a hotel or wherever they might be, they know they're being mistreated. They know it's not fair, but they don't really have the ability, the resources, the intellect, the maybe even the courage to be able to stand up and fight on their own. And because you took that, and then after college, and we're going to get into law school, I promise, but after that, you actually went to New York and you did some work fighting for hotel workers too, again, right?
That's right. So, basically from my experiences working with the union over there, I got more involved with labor unions in general. So before I finished college, I basically told myself, look, I want to get a job working with labor unions, people that advocate for collective bargaining, and higher wages for workers. So I ended up getting a position, working as a paid intern at the New York Hotel Trades Council, which, if you ever go to New York City and you're staying at one of the main hotels out there, chances are that union is representing those workers, and they actually get paid very good wages because that union is so strong. They get paid some of the highest wages in the country because they have that strong union. So I spent a couple months working with them, and I also worked on the fast food strikes, which at the time they were fighting for $15 minimum wage. Nowadays, we would probably consider that to be, well, that's kind of a regular wage nowadays. But back then, that was a really big deal. This was in 2013. So that was a very big deal that we were asking for those wages. And so I helped out kind of in the background with some of those strikes for fast food workers at McDonald's, Domino's, that was going on at that time. And I learned a lot from my experiences there, but it kind of ended up getting me towards the path that I am on now, because it was just very, very tough as a labor organizer, community organizer, for me personally, to make ends meet was very, very difficult. So kind of from those experiences, I decided that there was probably another path for me in terms of being able to help and continue to advocate for people.
Yeah. So you end up at South Carolina School of Law. I know just from our conversations, you did some more labor union related work while you were in law school, but then you get out of law school and you're on the Disability Expert podcast. This isn't the labor union advocate podcast.
Right.
So clearly at some point you switched gears, and obviously, you did that, but so you spent, I think 5, 6, 7 years, give or take, doing Social Security disability work at a big firm in South Carolina.
That's right. Yeah, I worked there with Paul McChesney, who is expert of his own in terms of disability law. So I learned a lot from him and that firm. I represented probably hundreds of claimants in administrative law proceedings. And we did not only the first hearing, but I often participated in remand hearings. So while I haven't written those federal court briefs, I've read a lot of them. I've read a lot of appeals council briefs too. And so, through that work, I was able to help a lot of claimants get benefits after, many years of fighting for those benefits. And I also kind of helped out with some other stuff like IT, whatever they needed. I tried to help out with.
Yeah, I know Paul's a good firm. I know he and Aaron, does a federal work for us in our firm. Talk somewhat regularly about different issues. Obviously, we work in North and South Carolina as well, and so we'll cross paths with some of the better lawyers. And certainly, that was a good firm for you to be at and learn, the ins and outs of becoming an expert in disability law. But not there now. The Patti Law Firm started in 2023. Talk to me a little bit about, what is it though that that drives you? What keeps you there? What is it about this practice and this group of clients that you're spending, massive amounts of time, obviously, in a law firm, building a law firm, helping your clients? What is it about working with them that really drives you? What is it that's sort of keeps you getting up every day to say, hey, we're going to go fight this. We're going to go fight this fight again today.
Yeah. So, these folks, the folks that we're representing are people that they worked, many of them have worked their entire lives, and through no fault of their own, through their medical issues have come up, they're no longer able to work. So what happens when you're not able to work? You lose your paycheck. You also often lose your health care. This is one of the very few countries in the world where many of the things that we take for granted are tied directly to work. So as soon as you lose that work, you lose that connection, you lose a lot. And so what we're able to help, with both the work that we're doing, is we're able to help people get that regular paycheck started again. We're able to help them get health insurance started so they can go see the doctor, and help people, stay in their homes. If they've lost that ability, helping them get into a new home. And so at the basic level, we are really helping people. I find it really gratifying, especially, I represent, and it's always great when we're able to win a case, but especially for somebody who's homeless that has, nothing and is living in, a shelter or living under a bridge. It's really especially gratifying when you're able to call them up and say, hey, we found you be disabled. You're not going to get a regular check. You can now get access to public housing, access to the things that you need, to just be able to live and get up every morning and have access to those life's basic necessities. So that's really honestly why I do what I do.
I think one of the things that, people don't really appreciate, I mean, we live in a country where the way the workforce develops following the Industrial Revolution and even through today is that the job, the person's employment is not just where they get money. It's often where they get benefits. It's where they get health insurance. It's where they gain the stability that sort of allows them to have this, this steady existence. And when they lose the ability to work, yes, they can no longer make the wage or the earnings they were making before, but a lot of times their whole life starts to unravel because the stability is gone. And so I think it's so neat that in your background, where you work so much with workers, you got such a deep insight into the role of the worker in America, but then started to realize, hey, it's not just wage. It's also health insurance. It's also benefits, but even in a bigger picture, it's the stability that sort of, it only stabilizes their family, but people fail to understand the stability of the families is what's also stabilizing our communities. And so, when communities break down, oftentimes it's because they don't have the ability to access the work or whatever it is. So I just think it's a neat observation. Let's switch a little bit and go personal though. You're a new dad. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think that's awesome. I have 4 kids of my own. I know you've got a lot of sleepless nights coming. And so that's just how it goes. But in our conversations before, I'm a big fan of in some respects, work-life balance. I think I know in our prior conversations, I told you that for years, my work schedule sort of ran till 3. And then depending on the age of my kids, I wouldn't work from like 2:30 or 3 till 5 or 6 in the afternoon or 7, and then come back and work at night to finish up whatever needed to be done. I know. So how are you doing that? How are you managing sort of this balance with a new child? And more importantly, do you think it matters in how you represent people and what role that plays with you and your staff and sort of having that balance?
I think so. I mean, honestly, if you look at my calendar right now, I've got it, blocked off from like about 9 to 10:30 every morning now. It says baby DeLuca duty because DeLuca's our son's name. So I have that blocked off every morning. So my staff knows about it. Everyone's aware of it. And so I really do think that, look, work-life balance, it's not, some people just talk about it like it's, a term everybody should appreciate. But really at the end of the day, there are some folks that want to work 12 to 13 hours and that's great. But for me, no thanks. I really want to have a life that I can, still continue to help people and do the things that I do, but also that mentally I'm not going to burn out to the point that I can no longer represent those folks. Also, additionally, with my staff, I'm like pretty flexible with them as well. So if they say like, look, I've got something that happened, like a funeral or something happened, I'm like, look, just take the time that you need and take care of that. Work is important, but life's a lot more important. Those
Yeah, I
things are a
agree.
lot important. So, and you got to take the time to do those things, because you can have all the money in the world, but you can't get time back. You can't get that back.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that I think our clients fail to our clients maybe misunderstand or fail to appreciate is that every day, whether it be the attorney or the staff that's engaging with that client, at some level they're taking on a little bit of their suffering. But what they need to understand is you're doing that at scale. We're taking on the suffering of all our clients. So what happens is when you don't have some balance, when you don't limit your staff's hours, when you don't take care of them, it's easy to burn out. And what the client needs is that employee who's working for us, or that attorney coming to their case fresh with energy and the passion to help them. And when you become burned out, it's difficult to do that. So sometimes I know in the past we'd have clients say, well, why is it Mr. Brown at work at 4:00? Why is it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you don't understand. This is a taxing job emotionally, because when you really care about your clients and you're trying to make an impact in their lives, you're going to bear some of that burden. And, at scale, it can become overwhelming. Compassion fatigue's a real thing in our profession and the clients we work with. And I think it's something that maybe our clients don't fully understand, but they should appreciate, is that the balance that we need to stay sort of emotionally healthy ourselves is one of the things that allows us to be passionate advocates for them. And if we become burned out, it's, I've seen it happen with staff. It's difficult to do. And kudos to you for that. Carrie's giving me the sign. She says we're out of time.
All right.
New firm, Pati Law Firm. How can folks get in touch with you if they're, up you're in North Charleston? I need to tell people, I think, where you're from. You're North Charleston area, helping people in North South Carolina, all across the Southeast. People want to hire you, get in touch with you, find out about, ways you can help them with their case. What's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, so they can easiest way is give us a call, 843-790-7550. Do you want to get in touch another way, you can also check out our website, patilawfirm.com. And we're also on on Instagram as well as Facebook if you want to reach out to us that way.
Cool. Hirak, thank you. We'll drop all that in the show notes and make sure anyone can find you that needs to. And with that, that's a wrap. That's another episode of the Disability Expert Podcast. Subscribe and join us next time when we'll be talking to one of the nation's top experts. Thanks a lot. Take care.